So this is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcasting on the internet under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby angel Geronimo. And the baby angel Geronimo was born about 10 years ago, in New Zealand, where baby angel Geronimo was lovingly raised by a woman called Leonie Walker. Baby Angel then left New Zealand in 2017 and joined the family of a woman called Helen MacDonald in South Gloucestershire in England. And the reason why Baby Angel Geronimo is the symbol, the banner of the campaigning broadcasts and communications commentaries is precisely because of the unique evidence that Baby Angel Geronimo has been witnessing of the criminality, the barbarity, the criminality, corruption, cruelty perpetrated by the personifications of evil, like the DEFRA criminal called Christine Middlemiss. The DEFRA criminal, for most of the times, George Injustice Eustace, and the criminal Boris Johnson, the congenital liar. And almost all the outlets in the so-called mainstream British media. And of course, the prostitute judges in the London High Court. Baby Angel Geronimo has been witnessing the crassest of crassness, the cruelest of cruelties that can only be found in individuals such as the evilness personified called Suella Ibila Cruella Fernandez. Although Suella Cruella Ibila Fernandez herself has not been personally implicated in direct interventions in promoting the conspiracy to cause harm to Baby Angel Geronimo. Everything that the evilness is in everything that the congenital liar, evilness personified Boris Johnson has been doing is similar to, akin to everything that Suella Ibila Cruella Fernandez does, says, mouths. So Baby Angel Geronimo is the banner of our commentaries, our updates, and our topical evidential notes, which we shall be continuing. The month of October in the United Kingdom, especially in England, especially in London, local councils, is observed by the crooks controlling the propaganda narratives of the local borough councils. And this October is no exception. They're doing this by staging completely bogus, superficial, pro-racist, pro-servile, pro-society, events. Today, Saturday, the 14th of October 2023, at the female insulting and swearing at an Asian woman wearing the Muslim dress. And there were three other Asian women standing not very far from where this was happening. And as I passed them, I said, "This is Black History Month." The black woman insulting an Asian woman. And these three Asian women gave a knowing look. That is to say, that they understood exactly what I was meaning. Now, it's not just in the case of the anti Asian hostility. It is in the anti Muslim hostility, but also among the people of similar ethnicity, general ethnic backgrounds, African origins, pigmentation, as is illustrated in the frequent violence, murderous violence done by African origin black ones, young persons under the age of 30 in the main, against other African origin young persons. And this is happening this month. Let's check on the situation about this murder by stabbing of this black schoolgirl. That was just in September. In Croydon. So Elian and Andam was murdered on a bus in Croydon. And the item in the BBC is saying the boy, who cannot legally be named because of his age, is also charged with possessing a kitchen knife in a public place without good reason. Well, there cannot be a good reason ever. Elian was stabbed to death at a bus stop on Wellesley Road in central Croydon on Wednesday morning. That was in September, as Elian made her way to school. While appearing in court, this 15-year-old, this 17-year-old murderer did not indicate how he would plead to the charges, his lawyer said. The boy was remanded in youth detention when he appeared at youth court at Croydon's Magistrate Court. He is due to appear at the Old Bailey on Tuesday. So that is a copy, BBC copy online, dated 29th of September, so it would be in October. So let's see what happened in the later appearance. Remember, we're talking about the context being Black History Month. So she's from Ghana. So there is this stream of items online 1 week ago, mainly about the Crystal Palace vigil. For example, in the Ghana's Sokarnet, Crystal Palace pay tribute to murdered Ghanaian teen Endam. Crystal Palace Football Club observed a minute's silence for 15-year-old Elian Nana. So they've given her full name, Elian Nana Ama Andam, who was murdered in Croydon just before their game at the. Let's see the full item there on the Ghana place. The Crystal Palace Football Club observed a minute's silence in the last, let's say, 20 years, let's say, of increasing kind of reporting, at least, of black young persons in London and in nearby areas like Croydon running violent attacks against other black young persons. There is this understandable kind of sorrow and regret, etc., etc. But there is no question raised about the series of causes that create the mentality in the murderer to take away somebody's life. I mean, if you look at the reported kind of immediate background in the immediate kind of past, many days after the murder, love for somebody else that Elian went to rescue from his attack, and that particular individual had snubbed him, the murderer. And the murderer then was aiming to attack that particular individual when Elian intervened because that other person was Elian's friend. So it's not like drug crime or drug related crime, it was something very different. How could somebody allegedly, reportedly, being romantically kind of involved, infatuated, whatever, with the girl, then move to want to murder her, Elian's friend? Causal kind of factors. So, for example, I'm not going to name this individual. I told a particular senior, let's say, black skinned kind of teacher, senior teacher, let's say, in a London school, that the policy that this individual teacher was following of excluding children, black children, mainly black children, from school was on several levels totally wrong. And this individual replied by saying that expulsion was the only way, or the suspension or exclusion was the only way to protect the interests for the bad behavior of the ones that were being excluded. Now, most of the reports that have been published in the last, let's say, 20 years of the victims, mainly black victims of the murderous stabbing and shooting, turn out to be academically quite bright and heading for academic careers had they been alive, allowed to be alive. For example, just to take a similar example of a boy, this Ajmal Ahmad, in the Langdon Park School in Poplar in Tower Hamlets 10 years ago. When the results of his A level, I think, or whatever public exams he had taken shortly before he was murdered, showed that he was of highly academic kind of orientation and was very, very highly achieving. So he didn't die because there was any involvement by him in any crime. It was complete mystery. As far as I'm concerned, I have not yet found any explanation as to why Ajmal Ahmad was murdered. Let's check what the archives have on Ajmal Ahmad. So the name that I have been saying is not correct. First name is correct, Ajmal, but the Ahmad is not the second name, it's Alam. So he was murdered. His name is Ajmal Alam. And this piece on the BBC has got a subheading: Three men have been found guilty of the murder of a 16-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in East London in an unprovoked attack. Ajmal Alam 16 was killed in August 2013 after he and his friends were approached by a masked gang and stabbed in the thigh in Spee Street, Poplar. Aminur Nadir Khan, 19, Mashudur Rahman, 22, and Ali Akbar Chaudhry, 20, all from East London, were convicted of murder at Snaresbrook Crown Court. And that is an item published dated in 2014, the calendar year after Ajmal Alam was murdered. The three would be sentenced on the 2nd of May. Khan of Robin Hood Gardens, Rahman of Victoria Street in Stratford, and Chaudhary from John Street Mews in Tower Hamlets were also found guilty of grievous bodily harm with intent of Azim Rob, a friend of the victim. Bodily harm with intent of Azim Rob. So there is a subheading there, and after that, brightest prospects. Ajmal 16 was one of our brightest prospects. His head teacher Chris Dunn at Langdon Park School in Poplar said, following Ajmal's death. The teenager achieved 8 grade A's in subjects including English literature, maths, science, and geography, and 3 B grades. Our school, our community, our country has just lost one of its brightest prospects, and we're all rightly shocked and depressed by it, his headmaster said. Ajmal and Azimi and a group of friends were approached by 4 men wearing hoods and scarves and were then attacked, presumably, police said. Azimi was stabbed in the face through his cheek before Ajmal was fatally stabbed in the thigh. A fourth man, Muhammad Malik, 21, also of John Smith Mews, was found not guilty on all counts. Detective Inspector Julie Willards said Ajmal was an innocent teenager enjoying a summer evening with his friend Azimi and others when they were targeted in an unprovoked attack by a group of young men with knives. This incident highlights the tragedy that knife crime causes. I hope the verdict acts as a deterrent to those who carry or use knives or associate with others who do so. Following the verdict, a statement from the Alam family thanked the local community for coming forward with information and added, Ajmal was a part of us and had his whole life ahead of him. We can only hope that other young people turn away from violence and knife crime when they reflect on today's verdict. Now, that is stupid. That is absolutely fucking stupid. There is no mention. What is stupid is that there is no mention of the factors. Causal factors behind these three criminals, murderers, behavior. And the mark shots that the BBC is running together really make them cringe makingly stupid and creepy. Now, how do you begin to diagnose this? As I was entering the Whitechapel Underground Station today, the 14th of October, I saw something new because I had never seen a leaflet being handed by anyone on behalf of the restaurant, local restaurant. This one was the restaurant in the Brooklyn area. Because I thought it was a post leaflet related to some kind of religious group or something. But it turned out that it was a restaurant business that was being, if you like, touted for. Now, the touting used to happen outside the restaurants, but now the touting has now changed locale and it has come to the entrance to the Whitechapel station. Now, why is it significant? It is significant because increasing number, well, now the numbers have dwindled, of course, because of COVID, but even before the COVID-19, the so-called Indian restaurants, which is really kind of demographically mainly owned by Sylheti persons, not Indians. Well, Sylhet would have been in India before August 1947, but these restaurant businesses didn't need any touting. Apparently, first of all, the numbers were smaller than they became, and also the quality of the food was must have been must have been better for the word of mouth to restaurant. And this has changed, of course. Particular individual who was handing out the leaflets was, of course, doing this in return for a small amount of money. So I told him that I didn't blame him. But I said the most of the restaurants run by the Siloti backgrounded individuals behaved indifferently and disrespectfully to customers that were from Bangladeshi backgrounds. And I told him that I spoke from my experience. Because for years I tried to, because I don't cook. So I eat outside, or I eat kind of food, I buy food outside. And it would make a difference if I could find a decent restaurant where I could have a meal. So whenever I have tried, most like 99% of the occasions, I found the behavior of the staff disrespectful. If I go back to the 1960s, in then East Pakistan, Dhaka was the capital of East Pakistan 60s. And the Pakistan government, I mean, in India, before 1947, of course, the British had introduced sea services conducted by an organization called the Central Superior Services Organization. And I wanted to give it a try in the 1960s. So I would have been a CSP or Pakistan Foreign Service or Pakistan Police Service. So I went to the bank to pay the deposit for the formalities, for the form or whatever. And I noticed that behind the counter, where at the window that I was trying to pay the fees, there was a man that recognized me. Or when I completed the form, I gave my home address, the village address, and he turned out to be from a village not far from my village. As soon as he noticed that he was from not far from where I came from, he became hostile. In Siloti, it's called Zid. This fucking cunt immediately became a hostile operative and tried to make difficulties in my submitting the money. Now think about this, how long ago it was. And sometime after that, I was in somebody's house. I mean, that visit convinced me not to visit anyone's house and have a meal in their houses. And this house that I visited, the family man, the man that was the head of the family, actually from the same village. But I didn't actually relate his emotional attachment to somebody who he might or might not know, although they were from the same area. And I was saying that our country was really in a bad state because of the attitude of this cunt that obstructed me. And there was a row, immediately a row. This man, in whose house I was a guest, and this was at the dining table, and it was absolutely unforgettable. Far from understanding the need to observe objectivity and distance and kind of due process in his behavior, the bank employee behaved completely criminally, etc., etc. But this individual, who was supposedly an engineer, he's now in America, I think, with his wife, who was from my village, and which was the connection that took me there to their house. And after that row, I resolved never to go to somebody's house and have a meal. Absolutely disgusting. Now, how far have I come? Now, this is antipathy. Now, I don't know what psychologists call it, but this is instant hatred and jealousy and spite to somebody that is your neighbor or from the neighboring areas. But I could extend it further even to say that it's not the neighbors, it's actually the own family members, blood family members are very jealous as well to their kind of siblings, for example, or offspring. And this internal kind of spite and jealousy and very kind of unwanted competitiveness, rivalry, I think destroys a significant part of the productive process, the creative process, the good thing, let's say. This hatred and spite and zeed account for the majority of the pursuits that would otherwise end in good outcome and results. So when Ajmal Alam was murdered by these three sons of absolutely foul Siloti criminals, I asked the then incumbent community safety councillor called Ohid Ahmed. I have mentioned this incident before, but it is worth mentioning it again in context. We're talking about the context of Black History Month, remember where we have come? This, so Ohid Ahmed, who is back as a councillor after the break, imposed against Lutfur Rahman and his cabal by the election commissioner Richard Morey in 2015. So Ohid Ahmed was the supposedly the council safety councillor in the cabinet of the corrupt crook Lutfur Rahman. So I wanted to, how shall I say, fact check the behavior instead of just making a phone call or something. So I arrived at the Mulberry place, which was where the council headquarters were in 2013. And although Wahid Ahmed had given me the invitation, as soon as he saw me, he became physically kind of unstable, nervous. I mean, it was a behavior like very much reminiscent of Trevor Carter in the so called Inner London Education Authority, whose behavior I have recounted many times, and I shall refer to again today later in the next few minutes. Ohid Ahmed started fretting, and he didn't have the courtesy, this moron, to invite me to take a seat. Now, Ohid Ahmed would never, ever, Ohid Ahmed would never, ever have the privilege of even inviting me because I would not even recognize him. But here I was doing the duty of campaigning, ethical, moral, campaigning for the defense of the community. That Ohid Ahmed and his cabal doing the so I'm saying this on the record. Ohid Ahmed is a creep, lying creep. I was there asking about Ajmal by three criminals who came from the same Bangladeshis. And I was there to investigate what the fuck the Tower Hamlets Council was doing to prevent, let's say these are children, these children from murdering one another. And do you know what Wahid Ahmed said? Wahid Ahmed, the lying creep. I said to him to explain to me, state to me what Tower Hamlets Council was doing about the behavior of gangsters, gangs that had existed among the Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets in East London in the United Kingdom. The gang culture, etc., etc., etc. And this creep Ohid Ahmed said to me that Tar Hamlets Council, that is himself and his kind of group of wrongdoing morons, under the frontage of the crook Luthu Rahman, condemned as a crook and a liar by the election commissioner Richard Moore in 2015. Ohid Ahmed said that we don't get involved. Think about that. This shit, this shit is supposed to be the elected councillor put in post as the community safety councillor in the cabinet of the so-called cabinet of the so-called elected mayor Luthuraman. And this shit was telling me that they didn't concern themselves, involve themselves with trying to understand, let alone deal with the behavior of gangsters and gangs. Now, Ajmal Alam, whose headmaster, well, whose actual record was academically very bright and whose record had been reported by the head teacher, whose reports were reproduced by the BBC and others after the initial court appearance of the murderers or the after the after the results of the public exams came out, that he was a very bright boy and he was full of prospects. And he said that their teacher named, I'm speaking from memory now, her teacher named as Chris Dunn, their teacher of the Langdon Park School in Poplar. Chris Dunn said that Ajmal Alam, I'm going back there this to the piece in the BBC on the 11th of April 2014. And let's see what the Chris Dunn, their teacher, is quoted as saying. Ajmal 16 was, and then the quote starts, subheading, brightest prospects. One of our brightest prospects, his head teacher, headmaster Chris Dunn, Dunn is spelled Dunne, at Langdon Park School in Poplar, said following his death, the teenager achieved 8 grade A's in the subjects including English literature, maths, science, and geography, and 3 B grades. And then the head teacher is being quoted to say also, our school, our community, our country has just lost one of the brightest prospects. And we are all rightly shocked and depressed by it, his headmaster said. Now, now I said that I would not otherwise go to speak to somebody like Ohid Ahmed. And he would be thanking his lucky stars if there was an opportunity where I would even speak to him. Because of his background, bad behavior, I would never go anywhere near them, he or his ilk. But on this occasion, I went there to do my self imposed, voluntarily imposed social responsible work so that innocent children like Ajmal Alam would not fall victim to the crass, murderous that Ohid Ahmad, Lutfur Rahman, and others were engendering in Tower Hamlets. I wanted to find out what they were doing as the so-called claimants to elected, democratically elected positions. And this disgrace, Ohid Ahmad, said that he and his mates in the Tower Hamlets Council didn't bother going into any details about the gangs and their behavior. Now, I put it to you, whoever you may be watching this, what do you think should happen to the likes of Ohid Ahmad? Should they not be banned for life from seeking any position at the expense of the community, at the expense of the people, either at the council level or at a parliamentary level or wherever? Because this Ohid Ahmad is on the record as having tried to become an MP, member of parliament, was absolutely far-fetched because that was in the period before the launching of the crook Lutfur Rahman as a politician. And Wikipedia, the morons, the shitbags, describing as a British politician, fuck them. He is no such fucking thing. He's not a politician. He's a crook. So before the formation of the cabal with the frontage of Lutfur Rahman, Ohid Ahmad used to be a member of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. And the Labour Party machine has got a very sick section that does these things. Now imagine, anyone who is not familiar with England historically, or I mean, Norwich is a typical English region. I mean, how would a Labour Party nominate Ohid Ahmad to become an MP from a constituency somewhere in Norwich? How the fuck? I mean, Norwich is not Tower Hamlets, where the or Newham, next door Newham, where the geography is in a relevant kind of context, significantly Bangladeshi. Because anyone who is not kind of motivated by the feeling of being a fellow Bangladeshi, and let's give them a vote, would not vote for somebody like Ohid Ahmad. He's unfit for purpose. So Ohid Ahmad was nominated by the Labour Party before the days of Lutfur Rahman as a possible candidate. He did kind of appear on the electoral kind of register or roster, whatever, somewhere in Norwich, with appalling results, of course. But not fit even for Tower Hamlets. And there is this complete dearth, the complete absence of demand for accountability. Does the demanding. And I have been demanding this even before this. How do I describe these despicables They were biologically born. I've been doing this since way before Bangladesh became a separate state. So I've been doing this for a very long time. So it's in my actual gene. It's nothing to do with the kind of community because the community that I defend, that I articulate on behalf of, doesn't exist without my advocacy and articulation. So Ohid Ahmad should not be allowed. He said he didn't. I said to him, what do you discuss with the police about events like the murder of this boy? I said, what do you do? Do you discuss, have meetings with the police? He said yes. But he said yes as if he had got serious case of constipation and he was having difficulty sitting there. What the fuck did he discuss with the police? As a community safety, cabals, shabang. So I will be coming back to Ohid Ahmad. I'm now going back to this question of the African, genetically African, pigmented African origin murderers murdering African origin children like this girl, Elian Andam. Now, in the last 50 plus years, 51 years or so, that I have been existing in the United Kingdom, events, event after event after event, none of which I anticipated before I arrived here, forced me to try to make sense because the incident that I witnessed in Whitechapel Underground Station on Saturday, 14th of October 2023, with a black woman, African descended woman, whose hair was painted, her hair was colored like red or yellow, bright yellow, as she was scolding this Muslim dressed Asian woman. Whatever it was that had triggered her, couldn't have been that serious because that Asian woman maybe touched her or stood a few inches ahead of her, while according to this woman, that Asian woman shouldn't have done that. But even if she was delayed by 2 minutes, that didn't justify this African person, whether she's from Caribbean or directly from Africa, like Ghana, where Elian Andam's parents are from. But she went into the lift, there was no agitation in the language woman. This woman now this kind of intolerance on the part of a stranger, because I suppose they didn't know each other before that incident. This kind of intolerance is unacceptable for basic society to function. I mean, I have long given up traveling on the London Underground system. One is very good environmental reason, because the London Underground system, as I've said in my campaigning narratives, is a very unhealthy kind of system. And I'll explain to those who don't understand the name Khoodeelaar campaign why the Khoodeelaar campaign. The underground system has been urgently in need of repair. I mean, the district line, for example, is so bad. The district metropolitan line, which goes up to Upminster in the east, is so bad, and the automated voice that is played there, the announcement, is done by a very unpleasant sounding woman. Everything about the district line is very bad. And the district line, in my experience, because I now need kind of transport system to have escalator. Climbing stairs is quite a challenging task for various safety reasons. Climbing up and down, which is one reason why I would avoid district line traveling. I mean, compared to that, I mean, see, even the central line, which is compared to the district line, is less ancient. The central line is itself stuffy, and I avoid it. The Jubilee line is very, very intimidating, and the most offensive thing, environmentally obstructive thing in the whole underground system, is overcrowding. Too many people in the trains. It's unhealthy. So for a very long time, I have been, because of these reasons, I've been avoiding underground trains and traveling by bus wherever I can do. But even bus in the rush hour mostly is very, very crowded and very bad environmentally. And the decision by the two in the London mayor post, Ken Livingstone, and his successor, the criminal Boris Johnson, making the buses kind of suffocating because they've removed the open access to the bus, hop and hop. That was a very environmentally healthy option. People could jump on and off the buses. That has been removed. So that has made the buses much less kind of safe and much less attractive. But compared to the underground system, the tube system, the buses are less dangerous even with that kind of difficulty of not having the access available. So I've stopped traveling on the underground. And when the Khoodeelaar campaign needed to make arguments against the Crossrail hole plotted against Brick Lane, we had to argue against the whole Crossrail concept. So I had to undertake intellectual studies that I would not have otherwise needed to do. But with the architectural expertise of K. Jordan, this became quite a fun thing to do, in fact, because we had a lot of laugh. Because my sense of kind of satire made it absolutely fun thing for K. Jordan to take part in the discussion. And, and she gave the various architectural kind of perspectives. What happened was that I found out that 9 or 10 underground lines, 80% of the lines are in need of serious repairs and refurbishment. That is generally one point. The second point, serious, serious danger that the the bank complex, which is literally under the building that is the Bank of England, the bank or stations, because so many lines converge at the bank complex. One accident or another is waiting to happen. One very serious accident is waiting to happen at the bank. First of all, it is the depth of the underground access is too deep, too unhealthy, and whatever the state of the buildings, the engineering, safety is not safe. It's not safe. And for most people who, well, I mean, most people who do travel through the lines that pass through bank or converge at the bank for reasons of going to work, if they don't have the access to a healthy, safe lift, climbing up can be deadly. It can cause people heart attacks, literally, cardiac attacks. So, all of these things that the really bad state of the underground railway network, I had to study and I had to use as part of the evidence against the sick makingly over the top promotion of this particular thing called the Crossrail, as they were doing, just like the later thing that they have been doing or they had done until the recent kind of realization that HS2, high speed 2, was not viable. They were saying that Crossrail would amount to a miracle maker. Well, the Crossrail is not a miracle maker. What the renamed by Boris the Sakharov, the Elizabeth line is doing is providing, in my experience and my estimate and my social observation, a better standard of transport, which is safer, faster. Well, the speed is secondary, but safer, let's say, and less kind of dirty and filthy and intimidating. And the space is that there is more space on the Elizabeth line, which is the renamed Crossrail line. Now, that is the standard. It's not a miracle achievement that people don't deserve. People, of course, deserve that. People deserve the best standard. So, all the underground lines in London, across London, must be brought to the level or raised to the level of basic level that the Crossrail line has been built on. How about that? Think about it. This is the basic standard that is needed. So when they overhype the propaganda for HS2 high speed 2, they tell lies. What they're saying to the people of England or Britain or United Kingdom is that the ordinary people don't deserve high standard of health and environmentally suitable standard of transport. That's what they're saying. They're saying this will be this, that, or the. Why should it be so overblown? The promotion. It's like transferring this to the standard of democracy that doesn't exist but should exist, They would be saying you don't deserve democracy, which is exactly what has happened. I have not checked the day's events on the demonstrations front, events about the support for Palestine. So we shall have a quick look at the day's coverage. Let's see. Let's start with the BBC. What is the BBC doing? Well, first of all, it says that Israel says military preparing to attack Gaza by air, sea, and land. They're going to do something that the Nazis and Adolf Hitler didn't do against any country. This is the BBC post an hour ago. So this is 21:05 GMT, this minute I'm speaking, on Saturday, the 14th of October 2023. And this is headed Pro Palestinian March draws thousands in London with protests across the UK. So there is a picture in Trafalgar Square, I think. Thousands of pro Palestinian protesters have taken to the streets across the UK, including in London and Manchester. I mean, obviously, these liars see are fucking liars. How can they say 1,000 police officers? There must be more. In London, more than 1,000 police officers were deployed as crowds marched from the BBC's new broadcasting house to Downing Street. In Met, the Met police said 7 people had been arrested, including one for criminal damage and two for public order offences. It comes a week after Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel. And the terror watchdog, whoever that is, I'll come to that in a minute, said, glorify Hamas and you break law. Fighters from the Palestinian militant group entered communities near the Gaza Strip, killing at least 1,300 people and took scores of hostages. More than 2,200 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel launched retaliatory airstrikes, and a ground offensive is also expected. In London at the Palestine Solidarity Campaign demonstration, Palestine flags and supportive placards were waved as people chanted during the march to Downing Street. The London Metropolitan Police said as of 1940 BST, which would be 1840 Greenwich Mean Time, on Saturday, the area around Trafalgar Square is clear, and the main crowd from the march dispersed. The force previously said there have been small pockets of disorder, including flares, bottles, and fireworks being thrown at police. Police had earlier warned that anyone showing support for Hamas, a proscribed terrorist organization, or deviating from the route would face arrest. Now, there is a big banner, part of which is covered in the light, in the lack of light. So, the justice and peace are the two words are visible. The actual full banner is no justice, no peace. Palestine flag supporters, supportive placards were waved during the march. Police appeared to detain several men in Trafalgar Square. One person allegedly threw an object at a police van at the pro Palestinian demonstrations near to Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square. He was chased by officers and caught while jumping into a fountain in the square, which sparked a confrontation between protesters and Met police officers, with a semicircle formed around the man. So there is a picture of the semicircle. So the semicircle is there, but the man is not identifiably seen. After a video of a second man being detained in the Whitehall area began circulating on social media, the force confirmed he had been arrested but said it was not for anything in connection to carrying the Union flag. The Metropolitan Police earlier said certain areas of central London were covered by a Section 60 AA power, which requires a person to remove items such as masks that might be used to conceal their identity until 22 BST. Four arrests were made under these powers. Earlier conditions put in place under the Public Order Act to deal with the march were lifted on Saturday evening, while special conditions banning people gathering in an area of Kensington High Street near to the Israeli embassy remain in place. The force said it was aware of people lighting flares or fireworks and said action will be taken when we identify those in possession of or throwing them. That is a subliterate sentence anyway. Protesters on the route of Westminster could also be heard chanting Rishi Sunak Shaimanu and the slogan from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Earlier this week, Home Secretary Fernandez urged police chiefs to consider whether the slogan should be interpreted as an expression of a violent desire to see Israel erased from the world, possibly making it a racially aggravated public order offense in some contexts. Now, Suella Fernandez should be treated as the worst possible threat to humanity. We shall update on the Suella Braverman's criminality and threat in due course, not in this minute. So there is a placard boycott and isolate Israel. Boycott and isolate Israel. Free Palestine. And it's near the BBC Broadcasting House. Rishi Sunak, said the BBC, said Israel had every right to defend itself from Hamas attacks, but stressed that civilian safety must be paramount in our minds. Orly Goldschmidt, a spokesman for the Israeli embassy to the UK, said Israel was not targeting civilians, but told Times Radio there will be innocent people who will pay tragically with their life. But this is a state of war, and we have to prevent anyone from harming us again. Well, how can they say that? We have no quarrel with the Palestinian people. Really, I mean, it's not even ridiculous, it's sick. we are trying to protect ourselves from the Hamas barbaric organization now. Of course, any danger or any threat to innocent people, innocent lives, is absolutely unacceptable. But then, why just stop at mentioning Hamas? What about the state of Israel, which has kept in prison this man Mordechai, what's his second name? This man that was hijacked from Britain. Vanunu, wasn't it? Mordechai Vanunu. Let's see how far back this goes. Mordechai Vanunu, also known as John Crossman, is an Israeli former nuclear technician, activist who, citing his opposition to weapons of mass destruction, revealed details of Israel's nuclear weapons program to the British press in 1986. He was subsequently lured to Italy by the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, where he was drugged and abducted. He was secretly transported to Israel and ultimately convicted in a trial that was held behind closed doors. This is not barbaric, isn't it? Vanunu spent 18 years in prison, including more than 11 years in solitary confinement. Though no such restriction is mentioned in Israel's penal code, nor imposed by his verdict. Released from prison in 2004, Vanunu was further subjected to a broad array of restrictions on his speech and his movement, and arrested several times for violations of his parole terms, giving interviews to foreign journalists and attempting to leave Israel. See, we've got absolutely kind of direct evidence. The state of Israel, they have kind of converted the state of Israel to represent, to equal ordinary Jewish people. How can that be? The state of Israel is an apartheid state, and it's a racist state where Jewish people are discriminated against. Jewish people from Ethiopia, for example, are treated as secondary or even lower category human beings in Israel. When that happens, why should the state of Israel be given any impunity, which is what it has been for decades? So we shall be. What are the newspapers' front pages on Sunday's papers are saying? Is there? So there are demonstrations, huge demonstrations there. They're showing pictures of the march and Israeli apartheid. There is a banner. Israeli, this Jew stands with Gaza. It's a Jewish woman, Israeli Hamas. It's a Katie Colley. She's a protester. Colley. She's a Jew and stands with Gaza. Israel's war crimes in Gaza. New Zealand goes right and Australia goes right. And Australia brazenly denies the original people of Australia recognition as human beings. Can you believe that? And they say that the Hamas attack on Israel was a lone example of barbarity. So we shall be, of course, this is incomplete, but remember, we have not been broadcasting due to technical issues for quite a few weeks now, and we are just beginning. This is not by any means complete. We're just beginning the process to create a normalization in our broadcast schedule. So this is 1 hour and 37 minutes, 21 seconds at 22:30 GMT, no, 22:30 British Standard Time, 21:30 GMT on Saturday, the 14th of October 2023. We shall be continuing to update as and when